Alright, welcome to part 2, the skirt, the tie, and the final cosplay shots. And stick to the end for a special treat. The treat is Jennie, the person I made the cosplay for. Hopefully this video was a lot shorter than the first part. Here we are back at my old place cutting out all of the skirt pieces. This took a long time because I was making obviously 2 skirts and each skirt needed 3 whole panels. Also cutting out the waistband. It took me a while to cut out the skirt pieces because at one point it seemed like I wasn't going to have enough fabric and I had to position them all across 2 pieces. When we first bought our fabric, the blue fabric was across 2 bolts, so we had to get 2 separate pieces. So when I cut out all of the skirt pieces, I used the whole pattern piece, which is the long skirt, and then when I made Jennie's skirt, I eventually just cut it down to the shorter size. So in the pattern, these are pieces 12 and 13, and 13 required interfacing. It is the waistband part, and of course the invisible zipper. I realized while finishing these cosplays that I basically planned out all my content around going to conventions. That way I'd have the convention vlog and then the cosplay that I made for it posted either before or after, you know. But now that everything's canceled, all my videos are kind of out of whack. I'm slowly going into my YouTube ideas and picking and choosing some to start recording. So here I am cutting the length off of Jennie's skirt, and I'm basically drawing out a solid line and a dotted line. That way I know where to pleat the skirt or where to pleat the pleats and just basically where to pick the fabric up and place it. This took a while because I had to do it across, 6 pieces, 3 per skirt, and I mean I could have just done it on the top and the bottom, but it really helped to have them in the middle. That way I know all the pleats were the same size. We are in the skirt section. So with your 3 12 pattern pieces, it says with right sides together, stitch skirt 12 sections together, leaving ends open as shown. Do not press seams open. So just 1, 2, leaving the last 2 open. We are this deep and I still can't position the camera over the whole instructions. Why am I doing this to myself? It's like as soon as I look away from the camera, I immediately shift over and you can't see half of the instructions and they're all gone. What is wrong with me? I mean, I'm reading it out, but it would probably help other people if you could see all of the words. Sewing those 3 together, leaving 1 open for the zipper part. So on the pattern instructions right here, it says, note, need help, visit www.simplicity.com/video sew invisible zip for further instructions. Yeah, I recommend going to it. I don't know what's there. I don't know what's gonna be there. There could be hentai and I'd have no idea, but that's not my issue. Here is the invisible zipper that I got. Alright, so step 2. It says, open zipper and press the tape flat on the wrong side, enrolling the coils. Do not press the coils. Use a low iron setting. On outside, pin right side of zipper face down on the right side of the zipper opening. Have the coil along the seam line, the tape within the seam allowance, and the top stop 3/4 2 cm below upper edge as shown. Hand based along center of tape. Position zipper foot at top of the zipper with right groove of the foot over coil. Stitch a long tape to the notch, back stitch to reinforce. So I definitely don't know what tape meant in those instructions. And of course I didn't follow them. I just pinned it to the fabric and I just sewed it. I never went to the website, so I don't know what's there. I just sewed on the zipper how I wanted to sew it on. Part 3 looks just the same as part 2, but on the other side. It says, pin remaining half of zipper to the left side of the zipper opening in the same manner. Make sure the upper and lower edges of the garment are even. Hand based along the center of the tape. Position zipper foot at the top of the zipper with left groove over the coil. Stitch a long tape to the notch, back stitch to reinforce. Again, I'm just doing it however I want. I'm just pinning it and sewing it as close as I can to the coils part. Even in the pattern pictures, I have no idea what that little piece is. I'm sure I could find it in my sewing machine parts, but I just choose not to use it and sew the zipper how I feel like. But I just thought I'd read out the instructions for anybody who wants to attempt to do it the proper way. Step 4. Look at this cluster of information. Look at this. I cannot deal with this. I don't even know what any of the pictures mean. Absorb it. Try to absorb it. I don't know. Close zipper and check that it is invisible from the outside. Pull the free ends of the zipper tape away from the seam allowance. Pin remaining left side seam together below zipper. Position zipper foot all the way to the left so the needle goes down through the outer notch of the foot. Start stitching seam 1/4 above lowest stitch and slightly to the left. Stitch seam for about 3 inches. Stitch remainder of seam using your regular presser foot. Press seam open. If you prefer, open out each seam allowance to end of zipper and stitch tape to seam allowance. What? All of that was so confusing. I still don't know what it was trying to ask me to do. So I went ahead and sewed as close as I could on the third side to the zipper. And then I basically sewed each side again to the zipper, trying to close off that little open gap. And of course, as you can see, it worked out fine. I still don't know what it was asking me. Oh my gosh, we've made it to an area where I actually kind of understand the information. So this is number 5. Press up seam. For seams without zipper, clip seam to stitching at top of hem. Press seams open below clips. Press up hem. Press under 1/4 on raw edge. Stitch close to inner pressed edge. And on the pattern piece, it actually tells you that there is enough for 1 1/4. So you're basically going to iron up 1/4 of the raw edge and then fold up 1 inch and stitch that. So because the skirt piece was so long, it kind of took a while to fold up and iron out all the edges. I mean, once you get the pleats in, of course the skirt's a normal size, but that hem. And then as I was ironing it, I tried to fold it back over itself. That way the stuff I just ironed wouldn't become unironed on the other side. So then I measured out 1 inch on the seam lines. That way I would know where exactly to pin it. You can kind of see me cutting out these little slits on the seam part. It showed a picture instructing to do that, I guess. So I kind of cut little triangles. That way I could enclose the seam allowance inside of the hem part, and then the rest of it is just open, I guess. I'm really measuring it out all the way. I really want it to be 1 inch all the way around. Jesus. And there it is. There I go again, sewing it on the dumbest side. I could easily flip it around and then sew it that way. It's just easier for me on this side. Of course, it's aggressively long. So here I am just taking a needle and thread and pushing in the strings to the inside and then tying them and cutting them. Of course, ironing out so there's no bubbles on the hem before I start pleating it. Step number 6. It says close zipper. To make pleats on outside, fold along solid lines. Bring folds to broken lines, pin pleats in place. Hand baste all pleats except for pleat nearest zipper closed to folding edge. For pleat nearest zipper, hand baste from lower edge to lower end of zipper. Press pleats in place, remove pleat basting when skirt is done. Here we go. This is what the lines are for. Now, the first time I did this, I ended up doing it on the wrong side because I was doing it on the inside and they were supposed to be reversed to the outside. Now, if you don't pleat it the right way, your zipper will be exposed, which will totally mess you up, so I pleated it all, and then because I messed up, I had to re-pleat it all over again. Oh, I hated it. I sat there just listening to music for like an hour, just pleating. And I was putting in crazy pins because I really wanted it to hold its shape. That way, if I moved it around or if I had to move it off of the desk, the pleats wouldn't unfold on me. The ironing part was really difficult. I tried to iron between the pins first and then remove the pins and re-iron over the area the pins were in. Now, the fabric we got didn't really keep its shape that well, so I tried to keep the skirts in this state for the longest as I possibly could. And I probably re-ironed the skirts like 3 times trying to get the pleats to stick. And after I had pleated the bottom, I re-put in the pins. That way they would stay there until I was completely done the skirt. That way I could unpin it because I wanted it to stay like that. I didn't want the pleats to eventually get all messed up. I needed them to keep their shape, so I put the pins back in after I had ironed it.
7. Open zipper, machine based across waistline edge through all thickness as shown.
On the top open edge, all along there, I'm going to use the biggest stitch, 6, and just stitch that whole part.
Hey. What are you doing under me?
Aww. Whenever I'm doing sewing, Bruce is just near me. He knows that sometimes I'm struggling with whatever I'm sewing with, and he just sits next to me and watches me do whatever I'm doing, or he puts his body right wherever I'm doing or something. So it didn't say where to machine baste at, so I decided to do it right at the end of the presser foot. I hate that 1/2 inch. I don't like it. This step is just to hold the pleats in while you put on the waistband.
8. We are going to be taking the waistband, piece number 13. It says, apply fusible interfacing to wrong sides of waistband 13 following manufacturer's directions. Press under 1/2 on one long edge of waistband, with right sides together, pin skirt to band, having ends of waistband extend 5/8 beyond opening edges as shown. Stitch, trim seam, press seam toward band.
So because I'm making 2 skirts, I decided to do the interfacing at the same time. That way it would just be faster. I mean, there are a couple points where the skirts overlap each other and I'm doing stuff at the same time. I made the skirts at the same time, unlike the shirts, because the skirt, I was just using the longer version, so there wasn't really any adjusting for hip size or whatever, because we used the same skirt size. Also, I made a slight mistake. It said to fold up one long edge, 1 by 1/4, and instead I decided to do both. You just need one, because the other side you're just gonna pull and then you're gonna iron over it. This is just for the fold over part. That's why you need the 4th there. You don't need them for both sides. So the side that I'm pinning it to the skirt, you don't need to iron over a 4th for that part. I will say, try to be careful with your pleats. Make sure that you do them exactly, because if not, the waistband might be just a tad too tiny. Mine was like really right there, so just try to be careful, because you need just a little bit of space on the end when you flip it over. So here I'm sewing the waistband to the other side, right sides together. Also, I didn't iron it over because I could just pull it, and I was like, that's good enough.
9. Fold band with right sides together, stitch ends, trim seam, clip corners.
So this is what those little edges are for. You're basically gonna fold it over, and I left a tiny bit of a little leverage basically, because when you flip it over, I guess it would be easier for me. You're gonna be sewing it from the other side, and you wanna make sure there's enough room for you to catch the other side. So I made sure to fold it over with more room instead of making them even. And you're basically gonna sew along the lines of the zipper in the edge. That way when you flip it over, they'll basically turn inside out, and you're gonna clip the corners. And there we go. It'll look like that once you flip it. All nice and pretty. This step at first was a little confusing for me, but once I did it, I was like, oh, this makes total sense. This is cool.
10. On inside, pin pressed edge of waistband 1/8 over seam, placing pins on outside. On outside, stitch in the ditch or groove of waistband seam, catching in pressed edge on inside. So we're basically going to fold it over the edge and then stitch right in between here. That way we can catch this part on the inside.
Sewing in the ditch of something takes some finesse, some grace. I'm not very good at it, and I try to avoid it at all times because I think, oh, there's a seam line on top. That doesn't really matter. So right here, this is why I gave it a little bit of extra space. That way when you sew in the ditch on the other side, you're guaranteed to catch it on the inside. So I'm just pinning it over, making sure that it's definitely folding over the seam line on the inside. Because if not, of course, I won't catch it, and it'll definitely not be a good waistband. So for anybody who doesn't know what sewing in the ditch is basically like on the other side of your seam allowance, right in between that little area. So as you can see, I'm trying to sew right in between there. That way you can't really see the seam because I'm trying to sew between the two folds of fabric. Even now I'm having a hard time explaining where to sew it because I'm like, it's in the ditch. It's in the ditch. Maybe I should input the video of me right now making the shape. Like if this is your fabric being sewn and this right here is your seam allowance, the ditch is this area right up here. That's your sewing right there in the ditch. With that, I decided to skip over the first part and then go back and redo it because I wanted the sewing machine to go off over the end pieces. So now I'm just taking a needle and pushing in the threads and tying them on the other side and cutting them. We have finally made it to the last step of... Hey! This is the last step to finishing the skirt. Step 11. Close zipper, left front waistband over left back. Sew hook closure to waistband as shown. I have these clips that I got from Joann's. This part's pretty easy. You just sew one of them on and then I basically clipped in the other side and then pressed it against the other edge. That way I could see where they would match up and I just sewed the little clippies on. I tried not to catch the outside of it on the other side of the waistband because I didn't want the little thread lines to be showing, so I just tried to stitch over that first layer of fabric. And that's it, the skirt's all finished. Wow, that was a lot shorter than the shirt. So here's the red fabric we got for the ties in the front. I didn't really try to conserve fabric that much with this. I was like, we have way too much tie fabric. I'll cut it out wherever I want to cut it out. I did a little bit of a oopsie on my part on this. With every pattern you get, it gives you specific instructions on how to cut it out on the fabric. That way you can sew it with the right side of the fabric that you're using. Now, I didn't realize that the tie pieces should have been cut out on single layer fabric and cut out 2 pieces. So I double layered it and I cut out 4 pieces for me and Jenny. That way I could do our ties at the same time. My tie footage right now in Premiere Pro is 8 minutes. 8 minutes, that's shocking. It's almost like I did 4 out of the 6 parts.
So I'm going to be making tie C, which is the last section of the pattern instructions. Part 1. Stitch tie 16 sections together in French seam as follows. With wrong sides together, stitch tie at scant 1/4 from seam line, matching notches. Trim close to stitching. Turn right sides together and stitch through seam allowance, encasing first seam. Press seam to one side. So I'm going to be using piece number 16, both of them, and then stitching them right here. I have no idea what a French seam is that, apparently.
So here I am putting one of them aside and trying to figure out why my pieces don't match up. It's because I cut them out of the double layer. Here I am realizing my mistake.
So apparently I cut pattern piece number 16 out wrong. I was supposed to put it on the same side and single thickness, and instead I folded it over. So whoops.
So an easy way to fix this, I basically just took the top layer off of each of them and put those in a pair, and then took the 2 bottom layers and put those into a pair. That way I could continue on and there wasn't any issues. It was okay. So now right at the end of the presser foot sewing, this was a big issue with my sewing tension. Oh my goodness, this is where it starts. This is where everything just gets bad. I tried so hard to do that French seam and it just didn't work out. I don't know what it is. So it's basically where you cut your seam allowance and you flip both the sides over and you basically fold your seam allowance on the inside and then you sew it on the inside and then you iron over that kind of bubble. That way there's no unfinished edges, I guess. Either way, I had trouble, and when I did mine, I just sewed it I just sewed it as is. I don't know what the issue is. You can just sew it as is. It's a tie. It's supposed to be folded and put underneath it. It's not like anybody's gonna see that seam anyway. So why would I need to do a French seam in the first place? There's no point. There's no point. So of course I just sewed it and left the edges unfinished on my tie, and I tried to do Jennie's in the proper way.
Step 2. Press under hem on one edge of tie. To form narrow hem, tuck under raw edge to meet crease. Press. Stitch hem in place. Narrow hem remaining edges in same manner. You know what? Nah. I'm not gonna do that. Step number 3. Apply fusible interfacing to wrong sides of knot 17 following manufacturer's directions. Fold knot in half lengthwise with right sides together. Stitch. That's number 3 with piece 17.
I just wasn't about this. I wasn't about this tie. My sewing machine tension was having an issue, and because the fabric was stretchy and slippery, I couldn't sew through it, and I just kept having a hard time, so I wasn't about to go around all of the edges and sew that. The fabric we had gotten anyway was fine, so there was no fraying, so I just cut it and I left it, because whatever.
4. Turn knot right side out, bringing seams to center on underside. Press.
So here I'm just flipping it inside out and I'm pressing it. At the end of the day, I felt like this tie was just like unnecessary. I felt like you could just get a long piece of fabric without having to, you know, cut 2 pieces out and sew them together. You could just get one length of fabric and just cut it and then you're good.
Step 5 isn't needed because I'm not using ribbon, so I'm going to go right to step 6. With right sides together, stitch ends of knot forming a circle. Insert tie into the knot as shown on front of envelope. In case I haven't shown it in a while, this is the front of the envelope.
The knot is pretty easy. It actually came out really cute, and I was like, oh, this is cute. But I used a red knot because on Pop Team Epic, the front of their outfits, it doesn't really look like they have a knot. It's just a red tie, so I decided to make it red. That way it would blend in better. And that's basically it. That's the last step. Skirt's done, tie's done. Let's roll in all the pretty nice shots at the end. So this is the end of the video, and Jennie's here, the person I made this cosplay for. And what kind of video would it be without her here to watch the ending?
Hi, I'm not actually here. I'm on Zoom.
Yeah, we're on a Zoom call together right now. I thought I would record myself taking the pins out of your skirt because it was so satisfying.
It's cute. It looks so cute. It's so sleek and like the pleating's like straight and nice.
You're so nice.
Honestly, it's my favorite part though.
The skirt?
The scarf.
Oh, yeah. This is all final video of the whole outfit all put together.
It's amazing.
I forget what I say during this. Usually I'm like, look at that. You can see my arms at the bottom turning the my mannequin.
My arms.
I gotta get that spin, the good 360 on it. This is, okay, all the videos are fast forwarded, so this is me putting on yours.
Oh my God, I'm excited.
I'm wearing your skirt, and it was too short for me, so I couldn't actually close it in the back.
Just chose.
You went like dead silent for a little bit.
Oh.
The arms were too tight, so I couldn't get it up.
You've done it. You done did it though. It's on. It's there.
I look so sad.
Oh,
The sleeves were so tight, I couldn't reach behind myself.
Oh no. Are yours that tight on yours?
No.
Why are they so tight?
So this is the cosplay that I filmed all of, the one that everybody's been watching. So I thought I would put it on so you could see a comparison of me wearing the one I made myself, which I adjusted, and Jennie's, which was way too short on me all around.
Don't be shy. Show us the skirt.
This skirt.
You look adorable.
I gotta get this off before I start sweating on it, and Jenny's like, why does this smell like sweat? Like, I don't know.
I sped this up to 200, so this is twice as long. This is me getting your shirt off.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I cannot express how tight the wrists were to the point where I couldn't do it.
I'm sorry, this is mean, but it makes me feel better about like how little I struggle getting it on and off.
And there's you. See, you look so much better in it. Like, it actually fits your arm.
I'm wearing it tucked in.
The picture of it.
Get that off there. Leave it. Disgusting. No.
You look so good.
Disgusting. I look like a Papillon. I sent you a picture. I literally
you
look like that
did.
dog. I did. Oh my god, please put that picture there instead.
You want me to put the picture next to each other?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, this is me putting on mine, and look how much easier it was to get on.
Oh my god, you had such a less struggle.
I can actually reach behind me.
I mean, you're just so cute on you.
Thank you.
Not that mine wasn't cute on you. It's just it was a tough thing to watch.
Stuff to watch me struggle in it.
It hurt to watch. Like it physically hurt me to watch that happen.
Oh yeah, see now the wrists are long enough. Everything fits so nicely. So this was mine that I extended 3 inches. And see, now that the skirt is long enough, I was able to pull it up. I can't believe you agreed to do this voice part with me.
No, of course. I mean, like, I'm not doing great at it. I don't know what to say, but yes, of course I'd do it with you.
Oh, you're so nice.
Hey, we did it. We
Yeah.
did it. You did it. I literally did nothing except distract you.
No, so the only impression people have of you so far is if they watched part 1 and they saw all the clips of you talking. Just you going
Also-
big
also-
boom, toe child. That's all they know of you. Yeah.
Oh, it looks so good though. You did such a great job on
Thank
both mine and
you.
yours. And I'm so grateful you worked so hard on them.
Oh my gosh. You're too kind to me. You're too sweet. Thank you. This is final shots of mine, and that's it. So, Jenny, thank you for being here. If anybody has any questions, like always, feel free to ask me. Do you want to do the outro, Jenny?
I was just gonna say thank you for having me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little bell icon to get notifications every time my lover uploads.
Say that for my own video.
You deserve it though. You need the clout, honestly.
You're so supportive. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's gonna be the end. Thank you for watching.